Good day everyone and welcome to this webinar about pdfToolbox. Today I'll try to introduce pdfToolbox and its main functionalities. I'll give you some practical examples and we'll also go over some of the new features in pdfToolbox 11 which was released not too long ago. Okay, so pdfToolbox comes in a few different versions. So what you see on the screen right now is the desktop version. There is also a server version that allows for hot folder processing and a CLI version that allows for command line automation. But today we'll be focusing only on the desktop version. If you're looking for more information on the other versions, there are already a few videos on the 4Piece YouTube channel where you can find information on those. And there is also the help.callassoftware.com website where you can find a lot of information as well. So what we see on the screen is the pdfToolbox desktop. You can see the viewer here and a few of the new UI elements on the side there. I'll start by opening a file. I can do that from either the button over here or by just grabbing a file and dragging it into the viewer. Now you can see the file gets opened and the pdfToolbox viewer is actually really accurate. It's a really good PDF viewer. What you see is what you're supposed to get in print. So you can always be kind of sure of that. You can see some elements that you might not see in your own version by default. Those are the art box, rim box, and the other page boxes that are outlined and named. You can activate those from the pdfToolbox preferences over here under highlighting. I like to have those turned on because it helps me diagnose pages when I'm working on something. So my file has been opened and now I actually want to do something with it. Now there's various ways of acting on a PDF. The first way, which would be the switchboard. The switchboard is over here on the side. I can open it like that. I can also open it from the top, Tools, and then Switchboard. In the switchboard, we get a whole bunch of actions which you can execute on your files. These actions are very handy because you have immediate access and they do stuff that you might want to do manually on one file and you want to do often. So for example, I can go to pages and I can do stuff like rotate a page or scale to a certain size. But I can also go to colors and convert my colors. These actions do not give you the full power of pdfToolbox, however. For that, you will have to create your own Fixups, checks, and profiles, which we'll get to later. Now, I would like to start by looking at this file and seeing what's in it. For that, I can go to the Reports section over here, and I can choose which kind of report I would like to get. I want to look at the colors first, so I can click the color report. I can say execute, and this will give me a report, a PDF report of what is in the file. So I can see in this file, I have 6 plates, which are cyan, magenta, yellow, black, orange sushi penguin, and red sushi penguin. So these last two are spot colors that are in the file. If I go to the next pages of this report, I can see that the orange color is like this, and the red one is like this. Now that I know that I have spot colors, I can use other actions to act on those. So I might not want spot colors. I can close this report. It will ask me to save it. It hasn't saved it yet. If I want to keep this report, I can click yes, but in this case, I don't need it. So I'll click no. This brings me back to my file, which was open in the second tab at the top here. I can go back to the home of the switchboard by clicking the house symbol at the top. Back here. Now I can go to colors because I know there are spot colors in this file. And I might not want to have spot colors. So I can use the process conversion, which converts all the colors to process. If I click that, I get some more options. I can tell the application where the PDF comes from to make sure that it sees the original colors as what they are, because we can see there is no original data in here. Then I can tell it what I want to convert. So I want to convert both CMYK and spot colors. Why? Because I want, actually, this is keeping the spot colors. I want to convert my spot colors. So I'll tell it to go to CMYK. And then I can tell it how to convert it to what color space. Right now, it is set to ISO coated. If I click the little arrow, I can see all the other options here. And we have custom. In custom, you can just enter your own color profile that you have. I'll go for ISO coded now. If I execute this, you can see now the file contains Fograd 39 ISO coded V2. And my spot color, let's try that. Let's go back to the report. And I can create a new color report, which should tell me, there we go, we only have 4 plates, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So my spot colors have been removed. This is one of the things you can do with the switchboard. You can just act on colors. Now, one of the other really powerful features we have here is the whole arrange category. For that, I will open another file. So I can open this file with business cards. There we are. You can see all the other files are still open here at the top. I can switch between them like that. So now I have my business cards. I have this one, but I also have a few other ones that are separate pages in this file. So I have 5 business cards. Now I can go to the arrange category. And let's say I want to print some of these, but I want to have, let's say, 3 of each. I can go to the duplicate action. You can see duplicate page right here. And in duplicate page, I can tell it to duplicate only the current page or all pages. I'll say all, and I want 2 more because I want to have 3 of each. I can tell it to keep the page order, which will cause it to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I don't check that, it will be 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, and so on. I'll click execute because that's what I want right now. There we are. Now we can see at the bottom, I have 15 pages where it used to be only 5. So if I go to the next page, we can see that 3 of them are Liam, and then we have Anna 3 times, and then we have Jack. Now that I have these new pages, I want to go back with the arrow here to my arrange category, and I want to fill up some pages because I want to print these. Now I'm just going to print these on A4 paper. I can pick from the list any page format known by the application, and you can actually add your own page formats over here if you want to. Let's keep it simple. I'll go to A4. I want to have a portrait A4, and I'll have 5 millimeters between each of the cards. I'll also allow it to add cut marks to each of the positioned pages. I'll say execute. And now we see that we have 3 times Liam, 3 times Anna, Jack, and then the next Jack is on the second page, then 3 times Ella, and 3 times John. And that's how easy it is to impose those business cards on A4 paper. Now, of course, we won't usually use fill page. We can also use ANUP. We have step and repeat if you want to repeat one singular page. We can use automatic creation of a booklet, or if we have the actual sheet config and run list, which are 2 files required for actual imposition, we can go to the impose category and we can do whatever we want. Now to impose, I can't use these business cards, of course. I'll use a book block, so I have one right here. I'll open it up. You can see this book block contains spreads of a book. Now, usually you don't want to work with spreads when you do imposition. So there are options for this. Again, in the arrange category, I can use split in half, which will recognize that there are spreads and split them into single pages. There we are. So now we have single pages for each of the pages in that book block from before. Now I can use the impose action. I'll say my page size is A5. I can see that at the bottom here. So we see this is A5 plus the bleed space that was created and the space for the crop marks. So I have A5 pages. I want to have any amount of pages per sheet because I want to control that over here. I'll say I have 4 pages work and turn booklet over here. And then I'll say this is an SRA sheet that I'm going to use. I can say execute. And there we are. Now my book is imposed according to an actual imposition scheme. So that is another one of the easy, powerful sides of the switchboard. Of course, there are more things you can do. We can go to document and we can have Office to PDF conversion. We can have image to PDF conversion. We can have image exports, EPS exports. A lot of simple actions that you might want to use often are available from the switchboard. There is one more thing that I'd like to show you in the switchboard before we go over to the more powerful checks, fixups, and profiles, and that has to do with large format. So some of you might be in the large format business. So this is a banner. This is 85 centimeters by 2 meters, and it's a big banner. So we have a category called large formats over here in yellow, and these are a few of the features that are in that category. So one of them would be, for example, add bleed. I can tell it to add bleed at only certain sides. For example, maybe if you have a flag where you would only have the left side fold around the flagpole, you might only want to add bleed, like 5 centimeters of bleed to the left side. Or you can just have every side filled in, choose your unit, and then you choose your way of creating bleed. Now this bleed creation is for regular shapes, so for rectangles. In pfToolbox 11, this is a bit of a spoiler for later, we also have a new feature that creates bleed for irregular shapes. So if I wanted to add bleed, I could use this. Another option that is in the large format category is to add grommets. I can add grommets either by number, in which case I would be able to say I want to have 10 grommets on the left side of my page, or by distance, in which case I could say I want to have a grommet every so often. So I can say, for example, 2 centimeters from the edge. So I'll say 20 millimeters. I want to have a grommet every 100 millimeters, every 10 centimeters. I can choose my type of object and I can say execute. I'll call this grommet so I can find it later. And we should see, as soon as it's done placing those grommets, that they are added to the page where we wanted them to be. So there we are. This is something made for the large formats business. What else do we see here? We have a category for fonts that can act on fonts. We have a category for images that can downsample images, and a big one as well, the standards category. With standards, you can immediately standardize your document to a certain pdfX standards. So if you're still working with pdfX1a, you can just click pdfX1a, choose your output intent, for example, ISO coded, click execute. I will have to call this pdfX. You can see it being saved. And now we see at the bottom here, once this is done, that the PDF claims to be pdfX1a compliant. So you have this big yellow thing at the bottom. Now, if you open a PDF and this is already there, that means that the PDF already, from when you receive it, claims to be a certain pdfX standard compliant. You can click that, and that will open a check that will make sure that that is the case. So if I do that, a profile is executed that checks, am I pdfX1a compliant, and it will tell you any problems with the file. So you can just click the icon to ensure that the file is telling you the truth. Okay, so that's all I'm going to show from the switchboard. Like I said, this has a lot of easy, quick functionalities, but it doesn't give you the complete power of the application. Now for the power, we want to go here. This is actually the same as what we can open from the bottom here. I'm going to start with checks, then I'm going to do fixups, and then I'm going to continue to profiles. So let me explain what each of these is. So a check is always a yes or no question. You ask a question of the application and it will tell you, yes, this is true, or no, this is not true. So for example, if I go back to my first file, the logo that has a few spot colors in it, which are no longer present, so I will have to reopen that. There we are. Okay, so this is the original file with the spot colors. I can use a check to find out if there are spot colors in there, for example. I could also use a check to find out if there is RGB in the file. So let's do both. There are a whole bunch of checks already present. So if I go to the essential category, you can see all of these checks already exist. So if I'm looking for RGB, I could just go into the finds field, type RGB, and I'll find a few checks about RGB. So I could say object defined in device RGB. Okay, analyze. Oh, there are no objects defined in device RGB. Then there is also object defined in ICC-based RGB. I can analyze and I can find, oh, there's no problems with that either. So a check will just look for something. Now, if I say spot, I can see a check for spot color is used. I can say analyze, and we'll see, oh, it finds 5 matches on this page for objects that are using a spot color. So if I open it up, we can see there are in fact 5 hits. A hit is what it's called when a check finds an object. We have 5 hits, 2 of which are for red sushi penguin color, and 3 of them are for the orange sushi penguin color. Now, this is just using predefined checks. So there are a lot of those, and you probably will find what you need in there. But oftentimes, you're looking for something very specific that you want to find. For example, you want to find text that is smaller than 6 points in a certain color. So you can create your own checks. For that, we go to the menu at the top here. We can say create check. And we can use the properties here to create parameters to have a check that hits on only certain objects. So maybe I can call this specifically the sushi penguin orange is being used. So I call this sushi penguin orange. Now it's always good to be quite specific in the naming of your checks, fixups, and profiles. You want to make sure that you remember what they stood for, and you want to make sure that you recognize the hits later on. Definitely when you have profiles that use a lot of checks or process plans that use several checks in one execution, you want to remember what that check was supposed to find. So if I call this sushi penguin orange, then I'll know that what I'm looking for is sushi penguin orange. But I can be more specific and I can say spot used. Sushi penguin orange spot used, I can even put this in quotes, will tell me that I found the color sushi penguin orange. Now it's also good to remember that this is the name that you'll find in the report later. If you decide to create a report with your findings from your profile, this is what your hit will be called. So if you name it something descriptive like this, then you will be able to read your report and immediately know what it's talking about. Now, I want to be able to create a check using properties that find that sushi penguin orange. So I'll start by looking for spot. If I look for spot, then we can see all these properties have to do with spot colors. What is a good one to use here? I can just use spot color name. So I'll go for spot color name. Oh, I forgot a letter there. And then I find this property. I'll say add. I can say either begins with, contains, or just equal to, and say sushi penguin orange. It's quite important that I have the right syntax here. So I'll use the test button to see if I find the hit. I don't find the hit. So then the color is not actually named that. I think it might have capitals. So I'll test again. No problems found. Maybe the orange is also in capital. No problems found. Okay, so I'll have to check what that was. I'll say okay to create the check, and I can go back to that report, not this report. I'll make a new report. Report, colors, execute. It is called orange sushi penguin. Ah, that explains it. Okay, edit. So I have to add the orange in front. And does it have capitals? All 3 are capitals. There we go. So if I now do a test, we'll see a test on this file, not a problem. The test mode actually allows you to change the document you're looking for. So if I go for this one, doesn't find it either. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure why this is contains. If I can't find it like this, I might be able to use a different way of doing it. I can just say spot and go for spot color present. So let's try that. Spot color is spot color. There we go. And this will hit on anything that is a spot color. So if I test, we can see it finds spot colors, red sushi penguin, orange sushi penguin. I probably had a typo or something that I missed. So I can find spot colors in this using this check. Now let's say that I only want to find spot colors in a certain area, or maybe I only want to find spot colors in fields that are bigger than a certain size. Then I can add different parameters. So I can say, for example, that the size of the object, size of filled vector object, has to be bigger, higher end, or higher or wider than, let's say, 2 centimeters. I can test that. It still finds everything. So I'll say maybe 5 tests. Still, because I haven't filled in this one, test. Okay, so now it only finds one match because I only find this one big circle, which is higher or wider than 5 centimeters. So I can make my check as complex as it needs to be by adding more properties to define exactly what I want to find. So I could look for is text, is a certain text size, and is a certain text color, and only find something that matches all 3 of those parameters. Now, if you are looking for any of these hits, so I want to find a spot color or a filled vector object that is higher or wider, I can change the logical AND that exists now into a logical OR by checking this checkbox. Maybe I'm going a little bit too deep into the details for this, but you can create your own checks if the checks that exist do not comply with exactly what you're looking for. Now, once you have checks, the second thing we have is fixups. A check can only find if something is true or not. You can only answer a yes or no question for a certain parameter. Now, with a fixup, you can change stuff. So I could, for example, once I know the spot color is there, I could tell a fixup to change the spot color into CMYK. I could do that for only this color, for example. Or I could create a fixup that removes text. Let's do that. So I'll go to Edit, I'll add a Create Fixup. There we go, create my own fixup. And I will remove text. So I'll call this Remove Text. Here, it's also important that you know what you're doing, but in the report, it will just tell you that it has executed remove text. Now, remove text will not exist as a parameter. So what I will have to do is I will have to create a fixup that removes object. I know there is a remove object. There we go. Now, the thing is, a fixup can only do one thing at once. So if I say remove object, I can't add any more of these fixups to the same thing. But I can define exactly what it has to remove using a check. So if I have a check, there we go, I can say maybe I'm going out of the frame too fast. Text, I probably have something that is called, there we go, text objects. I can look at what that contains by clicking the edit, and then I get the edit check, which is basically a check for is text. So now I can use the test button and I can see that nothing happens. Is that because my text is not found? Maybe this is a too complex one. I'll go for is text by itself, is text add. I'll call it text. Is text is true. Then I can test this and it doesn't find that. Maybe that's not text actually. So I can tell it to do one specific thing. So I could use a convert colors, for example, convert colors. And I could tell it to convert to Adobe RGB or to a certain CMYK. So any colors that are present on your system will be present in this list. I can say it has to be Fogra 39, for example. You can choose if it has to embed it or not. You can choose the supposed present profiles or to use the output intent of the PDF, which is normally how you do it. I can tell it to convert all objects using, for example, spot colors, and I want them to convert. So if I do OK and I execute that, of course, the name doesn't make sense now, but I can execute this, and normally this executed file will not have that spot color anymore. So that's what the fixups do. Now, once we've gone through the fixups, of course, you don't want to use checks one by one, and you don't want to use fixups one by one to execute one single thing. usually you have a certain way that you want your files to be outputted. So, for example, pdfX compliant. So if you want to do that, you can see in profiles, profiles combine checks and fixups into a package. So for example, we have this convert to pdfX 1a profile that we used before from the switchboard. If I click edit, it opens in the wrong window, but here we are. You can see all of these things that are present in it. If I go to summary, I have the option to see all the fixups. You can see all these things are being done inside that profile to have it comply with pdfX. Of course, if some of these things try to change something that isn't there, nothing will happen, right? So it's discarding embedded post script. If there is no embedded post script, then of course that fixup will not do anything. I can click Create Customizable Profile, which will make a copy of my profile. And then I can see all the fixups that are included in this profile and underneath custom checks, all the checks that are included in this profile. I can add my own from here. So if I say I want to add, for example, that check for Sushi Penguin Orange, I can just look for it here, Sushi Penguin Orange, and I can add it by clicking this arrow, and now it's in the profile. So now its profile will also check for Sushi Penguin Orange. Same with fixups. I can customize an existing profile to my own liking. If I don't want to do any of these things, I can just click it and remove it by clicking this disconnect button. That way you can customize your profiles. Now, once I have my own profile and it has anything that I want to be in the profile, I can select the profile, click Analyze and Fix to execute both the checks and the fixups, and then my file will be processed. You can see all the things wrong with the file, and you can actually do all the checks and all the fixups at once. Once you've done this, you usually want to have a report from that. So I can click the Create Report. I can create a PDF report. Now, new in pfToolbox 11, actually another spoiler, is the HTML reports that have been upgraded tremendously. Now you can have a very nice customized PDF report outputted that uses an HTML template. I can save this report and we can look at it. And it contains basically anything that happened. So all the fixups, the results, and then it contains a layered file that shows you all the problems on it. You can open this in Acrobat and you can then also see the tags and the layers that are on this. So these PDF reports have actually been upgraded tremendously. This is, of course, the default one, but if you use your own HTML template, you can create very nice personalized reports that have, for example, your company's logo or any colors or information that you want to be on them. And that is profiles. So I'm going to go over this really quickly again. We have checks that are yes or no questions to find problems in your file. So you can check for things that you want to know about and that, for example, you don't want in your file. For example, RGB color or certain spot colors. Then you have fixups. Fixups are able to change one thing in your file. So you can have a fixup that changes any RGB into CMYK or that changes any spot color into another spot color or removes objects or any other thing that you want to happen to your file. And then you have profiles that combine as many checks and fixups as you want into the same package so you can execute them all at once. Now, of course, there are situations where executing everything at once isn't the right thing to do. Let's say, for example, you want to have a file where you add, let me open this one, where you remove the spot colors and then you add bleed because you don't want the bleed to use a spot color, for example. Or you want to change the page size and then add crop marks, that kind of stuff. The order in which you execute those things matters. And with a profile, the order in which everything is executed is determined by pdfToolbox. So if you want to make sure that stuff happens in the order you want it to happen, you can create something else. It's called a process plan. You can find it over here. This also opened in the wrong screen. Here we are. So in a process plan, you can add any of these things. So not just profiles, checks, and fixups, but also actions, which come over here from the switchboard, variables that you make specifically, or even process plans within process plans. You can make this as complex as it needs to be. You do that by simply grabbing something and putting it in the field, and then you can connect these things together. So if I grab this and put it here, and then I can grab this and put it here, and I can connect the start of my plan to my profile to the output. Now I can add more stuff. So if I don't select anything, I can say I want to execute another fixup somewhere in between. Then I can grab this arrow again, and I can put it here, and then I can make this go to the end. So this whole new interface is also part of pdfToolbox 11, and it makes creating a process plan, and especially having multiple routes based on success or error. For example, if this profile errors, I want it to go straight to the end. So I can do this and say this one has to happen on error. There we go. So now if this goes wrong, the file will just end. If this goes right, it will go to the fixup. Of course, I don't have something selected yet, so I'll have to select something. And then I can have my fixup go on success to the end as well. So now I can have this. Oh, I think it's waiting for me to also select the warning somewhere. So I'll add warning info. There we go. So if this happens, it goes to fixup. And if this goes wrong, it will also have to go to the end. So I can just select on failure as well. And I have to select a fixup that happens. So for example, this one, and you can see all the errors are gone. So you can create a process plan that contains multiple steps. First, it will convert to PDF-A in this case, and then it will autocorrect the page geometry boxes. And you can create this as complicated as you want it to be. If you want to add this process plan into another one, you can do that as well. And that's the final way to execute stuff on your files. So we have checks that check for something, fixups that do one singular thing, profiles that combine them, and then process plans, which can create really complicated flows of files where the file comes in, goes through all the individual actions based on whether they succeed or fail. So if I add a check that says there is a spot color, I will flow to a different place where the spot colors get dealt with. If it has CMYK, I can flow to another way that has CMYK steps. You can do whatever you want here. And those are process plans. One more thing that I want to go over in the desktop here before we look at the pdfToolbox 11 features are the visualizers. So underneath view, there are a few visualizers that can give you certain information about your file as well, just like the reports did from the switchboard. For example, I can look at the ink coverage in my file. So you can see everything that has the heat map, so the orange field, has an ink coverage of more than 300%. I can enter that here. So if I make it 250, the heat map will change based on the simulation profile you have selected here. So this could be ISO-coded V2 300. There we go. And now it will base it on that profile. If I change this back to 300, we can see the heat map changes again. I can go to 330. We can see only this part is over 330. So this visualizer can show you that. Other visualizers can show you certain separations. If I go to process separations, it will tell me about my CMYK. Right now, it's only showing the CMY. I can tell it to show CMYK. And then you also see the percentage and the ink coverage of those channels. Other stuff we can do with individual separations. So you can look at cyan, magenta, yellow, or black by going through the separations. And something I like a lot is the inspect button. Inspect allows you to inspect individual objects in the file. So for example, I'm looking at this contour line. I can select the contour line and we can see this vector shape is called color space separation. Yes, separation name cut. It's alternate color space device CMYK 100 cyan. You can see a lot of information about the file. If I go to another file, for example, the business cards, do I have the original? No. I can revert that. So file revert, and it will go back to the non-imposed version of it. I can go, for example, on text, and I can get some information about this text. So I can see it is 11 points, it is this font, the X height is so much, and it has been embedded as subset. So using this object inspector, you can find individual objects and you can find information about them to help you diagnose problems and know what exactly is wrong with a certain thing if something does go wrong. Or if you're creating your own checks, fixups, or profiles, you can use this to identify what the object actually is to create a check or fixup for it. So that's the visualizers. So what we've seen so far, we know that the pdfToolbox exists in different versions. All we've done today is the desktop. The only real difference between the desktop and the server is the way files get processed. So with the desktop, you manually open your file and execute a certain profile, check, or fixup. With the server, you can have a hot folder, and any file that drops in a hot folder gets processed based on its settings, which is basically a chosen profile process plan or checks or fixups. So any file going into that folder gets processed according to those settings and output in a certain place automatically. That's what the server can do. And then in the CLI, you can automate it even further because you can create your own commands with certain parameters to have your files processed a certain way. And you can embed that in, for example, a website or based on some other system on your workflow. Okay, so those are the different versions of it. Now, I told you in the beginning, I would be going over some of the new pdfToolbox 11 features. So I'm going to open one of my first files again. I'll open maybe this sticker. Let's open this one. This one has a Dieline. I also want something that has no bleed, so maybe my original logo or this one. There we go. Okay, I'll use this one now. Something new in pdfToolbox 11 is the option to create bleed for irregular shapes. Of course, this would be an irregular shape. So what I can do is I can go to my fixups and I can look for bleed. We see we get no results. That's because I'm still in my essentials library. There are a few libraries. These actually allow you to organize your own checks, fixups, and profiles into certain folders, for example, a testing folder or a folder for a certain customer. So you can keep your libraries organized and only see what you want to see. If I want to see everything, I can just select this button. And now we see every single thing that has bleed in the name. Now we should see something called bleed for irregular shapes. And if it's not here, then I can create one. I don't see it, so I'll create my own. I'll go into my demo library. I'll say create fixup, and I'll check for bleed in the fixup type. And now we see we can create bleed at page axis by upscaling or for irregular shapes. So I'll do that. I'll create bleed for the visible page content. I'll say accept spot colors, which are called cut, because I know that my cyan line here is called cut. We just saw that before. And I'll not put it on a layer, but I can put it on a layer. I'll make it 3 millimeters wide, and I can say test to see what actually happens. So we see because the last pixel here on the outside is black, that the entire bleed on the outside is created as black. In this test mode, the test mode is really useful when you're trying to create your own profile. Just open it by clicking text. Test, you can see the original file, you can see the resulting file, and you can see the shape preview and the bleed preview. So the shape is what it is looking at to create the bleed from, and the bleed is what this fixups actually adds to the shape. So we can see the bleed it has created and the result that comes of that. So that is one of the new features, bleed for irregular shapes. This was an easy one, sort of, because the last pixel is black. If it has multiple colors on the outside, it will actually create the bleed, of course, with the color that is it closest to. So it will have, for example, orange over here, but black on the rest of it. So this is a new feature widely requested and now added to pdfToolbox 11. Something else that is new that we can also see either with this one or with this file is, for example, the option to extract this Dieline and use this Dieline somewhere else. So I can just look for Dieline, and you see this option is actually present in the switchboard in the blue category. So if I go to, is it document there? Yes, document, extract Dieline. I can extract it as a certain file format, so CF2, SVG, or DXF. I can find it by using a check. So I have a check called cut contour. I created that myself, but it basically says spot color name is cut. Then I can say execute, and this will be saved as cuts. And I can have my CF2 file appear over here, and I can use that and just contain the path for this cyan line. So those two are new features in Toolbox 11. A lot of other things have been added. We have more options for barcode and matrix codes. We have new server functionalities. There's improvements in the process plan, but you already saw that just now. The UI is one of the big improvements, but there are some more things. There are now the custom report templates. Actually, they will be added in pdfToolbox 11 down the line. They are not actually present yet. And we have more options for converting colors and to turn files into certain spot colors. We call that Spotify. So I want to thank you for attending our webinar, and I wish you all a very pleasant day, and we hope to see you again in the future. Thank you and goodbye.